afternoon, Miami Boat Show. Thank you for joining us. ACR Electronics here, leading survival gear manufacturer for boating, kayaking, surfing, anywhere you need us on the water. We are bringing together this fishing panel of friends and partners of ACR today because we want the boating community to start associating our brand as more of your lifestyle and just your everyday typical what you would pack in your bag before you hit the water. I'll keep it brief. My name's Nicole. I'm the Public Affairs Manager, and it's a pleasure to be here and have you all here in the audience. We have Ozzy from Operation Wet Vet co-hosting. We also have the ability of answering questions in Spanish, so if anybody is Spanish speaking and wants some good fishing tips, Captain O over here is available to help you. I will let the panelists run down the line and introduce themselves, but real quick, we have Debbie with Let's Go Fishing and Chris here. Chris, I'm just going to introduce myself if you don't mind, because he's my special guest. Chris is a bass fisherman, but more important to ACR, he's actually a survivor. He was out fishing with his friends, the Varels, who are here somewhere, and he actually used one of our products, and thank God he did, because here he is on our panel today. So thanks for joining us, Chris. And now I'll let you just go down the line and introduce yourselves and your specialties, and then we'll take it from there.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Fishing fans, boaters. My name is Debbie Hansen. So I am a contract blogger for TakeMeFishing.org, and I'm also a freshwater fishing guide. So super excited to be here today and happy to answer any of your freshwater fishing questions.
Good afternoon, guys. As Nicole mentioned, we're fortunate enough to be equipped with ACR Beacon. Truly, honestly, we would not be here today without it. Just thankful for everybody for having us out here. Great platform to introduce the product to you guys that don't know about it. Thank you again.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Captain Mark Henderson with the Liquid Fire Fishing Team from Swansboro, North Carolina. And our specialty with my family, my wife Audrey, my sons Crockett and Joshua, and my brother-in-law Chris Waters, we fished the king mackerel circuits and some billfish events for many years, since 2004. Very, very thankful and proud to be a partner with ACR since I think it's been 2011. So the excitement and the appreciation of having an EPIRB and the PLBs on our boats and the safety factor of what we do, because many times earlier this year we were offshore 95 miles, had an issue, and it was very, very comforting to know that we had those safety devices with us. And it's a much longer story, but I'm not a survivor because we didn't have to set it off, but it sure was nice to know that we had it just in case. So look forward to answering any questions that you may have and being with you for this next hour.
Hello, everyone. My name is Captain Orlando Muniz, and I run Nomad Fishing Charters right here out of South Florida. I'm actually located down in Coconut Grove, which is just a stone throws away from here. As a charter boat captain, we have a lot of specialties. Sometimes people ask me what my specialty is. It really depends on the season. During the winter time, we spend a lot of time live bait kite fishing for sailfish. We also catch all the other popular species, kingfish, mahi, you name it. During the summer, it's mostly bottom fishing, so we do a lot of bottom fishing. That could be anything from reef fishing for things like yellowtail snapper and mangrove snappers, to catching grouper, amberjack, and mutton snappers on the deeper wrecks. I'll be answering any questions. If anybody's got a question in Spanish, I do speak Spanish. Si tienen alguna pregunta en español, con mucho gusto se la puedo contestar. Thank you all for coming out.
All right. I think the panelists might want to get us started with maybe Debbie here. Before you actually go fishing, you have some tips for us on getting your lines ready and everything?
Sure, absolutely. So I did bring with me today just a few of my favorite fishing lures that I like to use in Southwest Florida, where I'm from. I'm sure many of you are probably from the Miami area, and obviously there's all kinds of great fishing opportunities, both from land and from a boat in the Miami area, both freshwater and saltwater. The baits that I have here are freshwater baits since I'm a freshwater fishing guide. But just to run through a few of my basics and my favorites, I love to fish soft plastic Senkos. So these are actually great if you're not fishing in an area where there's a lot of current or in a situation where there's a lot of wind. You can rig these weightless, and the fluttering motion that they make in the water column when they start to fall is just, the bass love it. I mean, they just go crazy for it. So my favorite colors are like sort of this June bug type color, and then this is like a watermelon with red fleck. These are two of my all-time faves. And then this time of year, obviously, we're in prime bass fishing season. The bass are spawning. You've got an opportunity to get some really nice big fish, possibly a trophy fish depending on where you're fishing. And a lot of them are feeding very aggressively since they're getting ready for spawning. So you can also break out the spinner baits, which of course are a larger profile lure, lots of flash. If you're fishing in an area where the water is murkier or cloudy, these blades give off that flash, and that also will attract those fish. Here specifically, if you're fishing in the Miami area, I know like one of the places that you can go is like the Cutler Drain Canal. I think it's the C100 canal, but there's lots of different places. If you go to takemefishing.org, they've got a wonderful places to boat and fish map right on the homepage of their website. So just a few tips on lures and how you can get started with finding the right place.
Thank you,
That's
Debbie.
it. You bet.
Did anyone in the audience have a question for Debbie? Bring the mic out to you. No? All right.
Come on, guys.
This is a participative, interactive event.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy, especially the ladies. Now's our time to learn some free fishing information.
We got to get more women out there on the water, for sure.
We do. Mark, you want to jump in?
So the cool thing about what we've done, again, I fished all my life. Started a lot like Debbie in freshwater. My dad spent a lot of time with me on the water, and meant a lot to me in my life. And wow. Sorry about that, y'all. Can we go to something else?
No, that's...
I'm good. So, long and short of it, I've grown and had 3 children of my own, and the opportunity to spend time with them out on the water started in 2002 when we moved to the coast of North Carolina. And, you know, our fishing started with us fishing from the surf and me taking my children out and literally surf fishing, and then it moved to the piers, and then we started king mackerel fishing from the end of the pier and catching everything from tarpons to sharks, and you know, and it was an exciting thing. In 2004, I had a good friend of mine who I worked with. He bought a boat, bought a 23-foot single-engine 200 Sea Pro, and asked me to fish a king mackerel tournament with him. It was 6 people on that little 23-foot boat, so we should have had an E-permit at that time, but unfortunately we weren't smart enough to do that. So long and short of it, we qualified for the Nationals in the Southern Kingfish Association and made a long trip to Biloxi. And our first event, first day we ever ran in Biloxi, the weather was so bad, was the first day of actual fishing in the tournament, and we had no idea where we were going, but we ran 110 miles one way in a 23-foot boat, single engine, 200 Johnson powered boat, 110 miles all the way to the West Delta from Biloxi, Mississippi and back. You know, but I tell you that because the opportunity, I see a lot of young people out here, a lot of children out here. It's great that you're experiencing the Miami Boat Show, and it's great that your families have you out here. The more time that you can spend with your children, with your family, your parents, the better off you're going to be. The most important thing that you can have in the fishing and is experiencing that with others who care about you. And that's what our whole liquid fire fishing team has been about. It's been about a family experience. It's been about my children and my family being able to spend those time with me. And as an old guy, You got to appreciate it more and more every day that we're able to go out. So we can talk about a lot of tactics and things like that. We've had our years of success and times of success, but the thing about fishing is you're going to have many days that aren't successful as well, and that's okay. The biggest thing, you get back on the bike, you jump back on, you start pedaling, because one of these days it'll happen for you and you win the race. So that's been my experience. I don't want to take up the whole time. We've got some great panelists here, and appreciate you being here, and please feel free to ask any questions that you may have.
Sorry?
Go ahead.
I was going to actually flip over to Chris, because I know as a company at ACR, we've been getting a lot of inquiries and interest from the bass community. And I know we're at a saltwater-ish show here, but still is Florida, and there's probably a lot of freshwater fishermen and so forth, and that is Chris's specialty. Do you want to start in with?
Absolutely. So I spend the most of my time on the freshwater, and honestly, before this situation, I never even thought about it. I've heard of the EPIRB, heard of the beacon before, but never really thought of it as a practical application for the freshwater environment. But you know, now that I see things, unfortunately, we had a tragedy on Lake Okeechobee during a large freshwater tournament, bass tournament. Applications are endless, really, guys. Whether it's even on the water, out in the woods, ATV, kayaking, in the mountains, you know, the technology's there. The technology's there to save lives, and it truly does work.
And then on the fun side and the fishing side and best catches and just things that you make sure you always do when you're out on the water as far as getting your best catch. And Debbie may jump in there, I'm just warning you, because I think she's caught some bass herself.
Biggest tip of advice there is check your line, check your knots. I think we've all lost good fish because of bad line.
Would definitely agree with that, for sure. And the safety factor. It's so important, you guys, just to think in advance about getting your safety gear ready. And it doesn't matter if you're fishing from shore, if you're fishing from a boat. I mean, a lot of times I like to think I'm this empowered woman, but you still need to be smart. You still need to go out there and make sure that you've got, you know, if you're kayaking, even if you're in shallow water, you need to be prepared. You should have a PFD on at all times, a way of getting in touch with emergency personnel should you need that. You know, we live in Florida. A number of things can happen, and you always want to be prepared. So
that's for sure. Orlando and I were just talking right before we started the event here about, you know, we'll spend all kinds of money. There's all kinds of money being spent today through all kinds of cool products that we see and stuff that's fun and exciting, and, you know, and it's got a lot of sizzle, right? You know, PLBs and EPIRBs might not have lots of sizzle, but I can promise you they've got the impact. And, you know, and that's something that if you'll do yourself a favor, make sure you stay safe, and make sure, we're talking about checking knots and being prepared. That is the key to fishing. All fishing is being prepared and making sure you're not lazy on the water. Because I tell you spend a lot of money. Why be lazy during that time? You know, you got a day to go, so take your time, make sure you're prepared, be prepared with your safety items, and when it comes to fishing, you know, making sure that everything's been looked at, your line, you know, like I said, swivels, whatever you would, saltwater, freshwater, whatever you might be your preference. But preparation is key to any sort of success in fishing.
Yeah, and I think I'll piggyback on that. With any type of fishing, everything starts with preparation. You can't, even if you're going fishing, it doesn't matter whether you're going to go out with the family for a fun day of fishing, or in my case on a charter, or if you're tournament fishing, everything starts with preparation. Part of that preparation, making sure the boat is in top shape, everything's ready to go, and your safety gear is, you know, everything's in order. Nothing can ruin a day of fishing faster than have some kind of either boat failure, or if things come to, you know, if you get a worst case scenario, not have all your safety equipment in check. Especially down here in South Florida, where the weather can change in minutes. You can go from a bluebird day to a real nasty thunderstorm in seconds, and the wind could go from 10 knots to 40 knots, like so. So you always hear about all these cases, people getting hurt or having accidents or mayday calls. Sometimes it's just mayday calls, but you know somebody's out there and they're having a rough time. And maybe a little preparation could have avoided that. Like Mark was saying, we spent so much money and time on getting everything else ready, and sometimes we neglect the most important things, which are our safety gear.
Agreed, 100%.
Any questions?
Yeah.
And I think really just the importance of PFDs. A lot of times I see people who think to themselves, you know, well, if I go out on the water and something happens, I'll put it on. The bottom line is, you know, you never know when that rough weather could unexpectedly pop up and, you know, you're getting jostled around in the boat a little bit more than you'd like. So
Yeah, it doesn't take long to have an accident, that's for sure.
and I think a lot of people don't realize.
We got a question.
Oh, awesome.
Where do you guys recommend to keep your EPIRB? That's the question we got. Where do you guys keep your EPIRB at?
Me personally, we have a ditch bag that we carry, so it's available to us at all times at arm's length. We have a big boat, you know, so the opportunity to have one mounted as well is and I say big, it's 39-foot quad engine CV. So, you know, have one mounted inside console. A lot of them can be mounted on outside of your console as well. But we keep ours handy with the in reach, arm's reach of it with a ditch bag, so that we can deploy it manually if we have to. We keep our PLBs in our seat and on our our personal flotation devices as well.
I'd definitely say a key part of that is making sure everybody on the boat knows where that equipment's located. Personal flotation devices, you get to wear them. Throw cushions, fire extinguishers, obviously the EPIRB or the beacons. Make sure that everybody knows where they're at all times.
I think a lot of people have this idea in their head that if they actually do the safety check, they're going to get ticketed. But that's not the point of it. The point of it is to check and make sure that your boat is properly outfitted with all the safety gear that you need for the particular type of vessel that you have.
And I think that's true not just with the EPIRB, but also with life preservers, throwable devices, air horns, fire extinguishers. You want all that stuff to be accessible. You also want everybody on the boat to know where that may be, just in case something happens to the captain. Well, then what are the others going to do? They need to know how to operate the radio, you know, in case of an emergency. God forbid something happened to the captain, now what? You know, especially in my case, where a lot of times I'm fishing with people never been out before. They have no clue. So they need to have an idea what to do in case of an emergency, should it arise.
Chris, we have a question for you. How far out offshore were you when you had to get rescued? What was your situation?
We were about 25 miles offshore, off the East Coast, Port Canaveral. Boat started taking on water. We believe that the live well pump failed. We had water that was coming in the boat. Seas picked up, as was mentioned before. It went from a fairly calm day to 1 to 2 foot seas, pretty spread out, 3 to 4 foot seas. So the boat continued to take on water. We got to a point where we couldn't maneuver anymore. And as was mentioned, it happens so quick. So having that plan, knowing where everything is, making sure that you're prepared yourself and everybody else is critical there. We spoke about the Coast Guard before. Lifesavers for sure. They were a blessing to us. Still remember the sight of the plane flying over us. The boat showed up, and a completely professional group of guys they were.
Yeah. Mark and I were actually talking earlier about situations that arise, and even though I've never had to personally use my EPIRB, I had to have a couple close calls where, for whatever reason, maybe like in your case, a pump failure or something, that issue, a busted hose. You always think, do I have what I need to get through this, or am I gonna need it? But it's always nice to have it just in case. It's one of those things. You hope you don't ever have to use it.
Mark, I have a question. Your family's growing and growing fast. What considerations are you putting in place for safe boating for the kids?
Well, you know, it's been really cool because my children have grown up in it. Crockett, my youngest son, is actually a licensed captain, got his captain's license at 19, and really proud of that. You know, and I've got 3 grandchildren, and you know, so as they grow, the importance of making sure they got PFDs that you know, fit them, and making sure that we have all that safety gear, and you know, and you know, that they're prepared and we're prepared in case something were to happen, you know. And the biggest thing is that, you know, the safety aspect of it, that's huge for us, but making sure that they understand that the opportunity to spend time on the water and learning to love a sport and appreciating and respecting the environment in the way in which, you know, as long as we keep it healthy for our children and our children's children. I mean, that's critical. You respect what you catch. I eat fish. I don't mind killing a fish, but I don't kill more fish than I can eat, or if friends want it, and that kind of thing. So those types of things, and treating and teaching our children and our grandchildren how to truly appreciate what we have. And the more that we can do that, and the more that people pay attention to those small things, you know, the longer and the longevity of what we do is so good. It's so critical to make sure that everyone can be out here and enjoy it. I don't care if you're in North Carolina, Florida, it really, to Mexico, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's all the things that we need to do to protect our environment and appreciate our families and friends and people that are in the industry, and all of you that are here who are so passionate about, well, you wouldn't be here if you weren't passionate about water sports and that kind of thing. So, you know, being able to appreciate that is just critical. And I think that's what I want to teach as a father and a grandfather. Those are the things that mean so much to me. I get emotional thinking about my dad and the things that he taught me, and it's things you can't replace. You know, there's nothing that you can replace, money or anything else. Nothing replaces the time that you have with your family and friends, and the ability to be out in something that God's given us, and we, you know how to appreciate. You know, it's pretty special.
So true. I agree with you 100%, Mark. My grandfather taught me how to fish in the lakes of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and those are memories that I'll cherish forever. And, you know, at the industry breakfast yesterday, I heard a stunning statistic, and that statistic was that 62% of kids have not been involved in one outdoor activity, and that's data from the year 2014. And to me, that's just, it's jaw-dropping. We need to keep our families, and we need to keep mentoring and get the next generation involved and educate them on safety, on our environment, on how to be better stewards of our environment, how to be conscious of conservation. Those things are so very important. But, you know, mentoring, I mean, and spending that time on the water, those are memories, outdoor experiences that kids will take with them for the rest of their lives. So,
I know, I remember mine, you know, and when,
right?
You know, the opportunity to have just those special times, it's so good. And, you know, caught some great fish over the years. I mean, we've all had wonderful catches and things like that. So, you know, I mean, I kind of get into some of the fishing side of the things. I mean, I'd like to hear what some of these guys, what their biggest fish are, some of the crazy things that's happened to them on the water over the years. And, you know, so whatever you guys can I know you've caught over a 10-pound largemouth is what I hear.
It was 10 pounds, 6 ounces. Not that I was, you know, paying close attention or anything. Yeah, I mean, that was a super exciting experience. But I have to say that, you know, the whole time I was thinking about my grandfather and all those memories. So
yeah, you'd never had that experience if he hadn't have taken you. You know, there's a lot of people fish all their life that never even come close to catching a 10-pound largemouth bass.
No, and I think, you know, now in today's digital age, we're so connected to our electronic devices, and our families need that bonding time on the water. We need that time to decompress, to just, you know, spend time together and remember what it was like to actually socialize and have fun and learn new skills and techniques out there on the water. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think one of the greatest things about our sport is that no matter how much you think you know, I bet every day you guys go out on the water, you learn something new. Every day.
Oh, I learned stuff new from my son, my God, he's an amazing fisherman, way better fisherman than I'll ever be. And, you know, so it's cool for me to sit around and watch what the developments happened for him over the years. And you know, they teach me, he teaches me. I just get in the way. I'm the bilge boy now. I let them take care of all the fun stuff and all the fishing. So, you know, that's fun to watch. It's fun to see, you know.
So much so. Yeah.
And I have to say that you're absolutely right. The one thing I could assure you is that it's a never-ending process.
Yeah.
From the time I started fishing as a young boy, growing up here, things have changed so much. And even after I got involved in offshore sport fishing, which we're going back probably close to 30 years now, the developments have just, a lot of things have changed from the way we fish to the techniques we use and how we do it. Everything's become faster, you know, tighter, more precise, technical. The electronics have totally changed the game. You can do things now you can even imagine doing earlier. So there has been a lot of advances and a lot of changes, but the one thing that has been constant is that you constantly have to evolve with the sport. You can't just say, I know all I need to know and I'm done. That's one of the beauties of it, is that it's a lifelong thing. And the beauty of it is that you're never, ever finished. You never fully master it. As a matter of fact, a lot of times when I meet somebody for the first time and fishing comes up, I usually like to see what they say. And usually if they tell me, oh, I know everything there is to know, that tells me right away they know nothing. When somebody says, well, I know some, but I've got a lot to learn, that usually means they're being honest with you, and they know enough to realize they don't know.
Yeah. I'm not scared to touch a live bait, at least, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. So, Chris, in your world, man, tell us some good stuff about big fish you've caught.
Well, probably the highlight of my fishing right now is much like you. My son is very involved on the bass scene. He's currently fishing. He's fishing a tournament right now for high school bass. So we've traveled all over the state. Fortunately, we've been up to Alabama for the World's National Finals for high school fishing. So a lot of good things there. Personally, I still get to fish a little bit myself. Not as much as I've been able to, but my personal best is a 12.5-pound bass.
Oh, man.
Nice.
Nice.
You smoke me.
We got a question over here, very interesting question. So I know we have an AIS link available, and I believe this question will fall in line with it. What's your question?
Hi, hopefully this is maybe a lighthearted question. You talked about family and friends going out on the water. Well, dogs are a really big part of the family and friend traveling pack, so to say.
Sure.
Do you have any recommendations for introducing a dog for the first time on the boat? Or are there devices or?
Any devices, or how to introduce the dog into the first time going on the boat?
You know, that's a good question. It's one that I need to learn. I'm not familiar with that. However, if it's part of your family, then I treat them just like a kid. You know, find a PFD that fits them as well. I mean, you know, you're talking about if you're out offshore, I mean, they need protection as well. And certainly, you know, if that's important to you, if that you know, dog is important to you, I would treat it just exactly like I would one of my children. And you know, I mean, I think that's critical for you to feel comfortable as well. That's the biggest. If you feel comfortable, and you're going to have a better time if you know that loved one is out there with you and they're being taken care of, and you've done everything that you can to take care of them. By all means, you're going to have more time on the water, whether you're fishing, life rafting, sunbathing, whatever it may be, and it'll be a whole lot more of a pleasurable experience for you. You're welcome.
All right, we got another question.
Okay.
All right.
How you doing? I guess I have an old EPIRB, and I'm wondering, how do I reservice it? How do I recertify it?
That's a great question, and I know it's one Nicole can answer. I know that is possible because I had an old one, had a battery replaced in it as well, and if I'm not mistaken, it can be recertified, right?
Yes, it can. If you want to, it can. You may want to consider just moving on to a new beacon at this.
Well, honestly, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Right now we've got EPIRBs that are under $400 during the show, and they've got a 10-year battery. I'm guessing your battery is only 5 years, 4 years, yeah. So when you do all the math, you might as well make the jump. And
And he does have a raffle ticket, so he might walk away with a new one today.
You might win one if you got a raffle ticket. Anyone who doesn't have one yet can grab one. We're raffling away ACR and ocean signal beacons. We also have giveaways from Universo Marino, which is one of the few or only really Spanish fishing radio shows and magazines. And Captain O over here is actually an editor for the magazine and does the radio show. You're a frequent guest, right? A regular, so to speak?
Us guest.
Guest, yeah.
But they've become so much more affordable. I mean, that's over the last 10 years. I mean, ACR's done a great job of making them affordable to, you know, the recreational fisherman and boater.
We got another question over here.
How did the Kingfish Cup weekend go?
All right, hold on. Kingfish question right here, right.
Kingfish Cup championship weekend, problems you had in winning the championship.
Well, I'm sorry, what was the last part of it?
The problems you had in winning the championship.
The problems that we experienced in the championship and the Kingfish Cup? Yeah, we had the Kingfish Cup for this young man. We won the what's called the Kingfish Cup. It's a big event out of North Carolina. Won about $100,000 in this event in November. And we experienced an issue. What started this, and I alluded to this when we first started, I was 95 miles offshore and had 2 mounting bolts on the top. I've run a 39 CV with quad Mercury 350s, so the 2 top mounting bolts somehow got loose and sheared off. So one of the motors, an 800-pound motor almost, well, 680, came off, leaned off of the transom and fell down about 4 inches. So it really kind of ended our fishing day because getting back, and we were in 8, well, it started off at about 5 to 6, and so we had to start heading back inshore with the motor trimmed up, cinched off and tied off to midship. So at 6 knots, even though we have all this horsepower, this motor's sitting back there bouncing, and so we couldn't go very fast. And as the night rolled on, it was 11 o'clock at night, pitch black, and it's 10-foot seas coming over the T-top. So that kind of predicated into the next weekend was the Kingfish Cup Championship, and you know, we had to borrow a boat because we were getting the motor issue taken care of. So that's kind of how that led up to that. And then the Kingfish Cup was horrible weather. North Carolina is known for being difficult at times if you're a fisher person, and you know, so fortunately the tournaments were postponed days, and then long and short of it, we fished on Sunday in a borrowed boat, and it was rough, and we fished 4 spots before we finally found the right fish. Now, it wasn't the biggest fish in the ocean, but there were the two biggest fish in the event, and it was an exciting time. It was a nail biter because we didn't hear of many other fish being caught, so we weren't really sure where we were, but we were the 3rd from the last boat to weigh in that day, and it's a pretty prominent event in our area, specified to certain, you know, qualifications and that kind of thing. And so we caught a 24.35 and a 35.9, and it's a little over 60 pounds, and won us almost $100,000. So it was pretty exciting. It was a pretty exciting time, and you know, we've had our share, like I said before, we've had our share of success over the years, but we've also had our share of failures. But we always go, even though you get frustrated. I hope that answered your question.
I wonder if Debbie can share with us a little bit. Her and I just had a nice lunch where we were talking about how the fishing and boating community is becoming a lot more female, and how our perspective of getting ready for fishing and what we do is different, and talk about some of the outreach and that fun event you went to the other night, and how women are making fishing and the sport our own.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, you know, obviously women are one of the fastest growing demographics in our industry. More women are getting out there. They're getting out there on their own. They're striving to learn more about the sport. That's what I was just talking to Nicole about, an event that I went to with the Nature Coast Lady Anglers. They're up in the Ocala area, and they did a really fun, neat educational event called Hook, Wine, and Sinker. So they had it at one of the ladies' homes. They had 3 stations set up where they learned a terminal knot, a line-to-line knot, and then an arbor knot to connect their line to their reel. So they knew, the 3 key knots that you need to know to be able to set up your own gear. They had a blast, learning and socializing. And I think really, the key to getting more women involved and keeping them involved is to give them more support, and also to keep providing them with educational opportunities and help them see themselves outdoors participating in these activities. I think one of the things I shouldn't say a lot, I should say one of the things that some of us in this industry tend to do from time to time without even realizing it is we like to talk about a lot of the exciting fancy lures and techniques that we use, but when it comes down to it, fishing really can be so simple. And you don't need to have a lot of, expensive fancy gear to get started doing it. And you can just get out there. Most all of us, I know we were talking at lunch, and most all of us started fishing from shore when we were kids. And that just, like you were saying earlier, Orlando, it just kept progressing and evolves. And your quest to learn more becomes greater and greater, and you keep, your excitement level builds. And when you've got camaraderie and you've got other people to get out there on the water with and learn from, it just makes that much more of an impression. And I think that, we as the women that are in this industry, the ones that I see as being, really successful, one of their key philosophies is we got to keep mentoring each other and encouraging each other, and it's really so true.
Also another cool thing about fishing, you get to see things that you watch on television. You watch the National Geo channel and things like that. We had a conference call earlier this week about this event that we're doing today and talked about some cool things that we've seen on the water. We've had an opportunity to see some things that you might not ever see. And I got to thinking about this as we were talking about it. Some of the most unusual or the coolest things we've seen. And I believe it was in 2005. My son Crockett, his memory's way better than mine, but we were across the shoals in Cape Lookout up in North Carolina. And we were out fishing for stripers, if I'm not mistaken, because the striped bass had come in. And which doesn't happen a lot right where we live in North Carolina, but they had that year. Well, we looked around, and at that time, we video and take a lot of photos now, but that time we didn't have video camera on the boat, but none of us will ever forget a great white shark swimming up to our boat. I had a 25-foot contender, and this thing was well over half the length of that. So we're probably talking about a fish that was 16 to 18 feet, huge girth, huge back. And you see that stuff on TV, you see Jaws and things like that, but those are the kinds of things that I might not ever get to see again. But you know what? You don't know unless you go. That's the one thing. I don't care if you're catching fish, looking for birds, it doesn't matter. There's so many things that you can see and enjoy on the water. And those are the experiences that stick with you for a long time. I remember those types of things better than I do if we won a tournament sometimes. And as far as images go, of course you always like seeing money in your bank account, but when it comes to the images of things and seeing a humpback whale breach and the tail come out of the water and catching those types of photos, we were out. Crockett and I were out in our bay boat. We got a 27-foot CV bay boat about 5 weeks ago. We were in 20 feet of water, and I did a live Instagram feed that had a humpback whale in less than 20 feet of water off the coast of North Carolina.
Wow.
And that's something that you just can't buy. And it's one of those things that's so fun and so exciting. And, and that's the things that I experienced. I talk a lot about family, but that's really what it was. I was with my kid. He's not a kid anymore. He's a grown man, 21 years old. But,
it's like that country song.
It's really, really fun to be out there. So do yourselves a favor. Get out on the water. Be prepared. Be safe, all these things. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of good opportunity. You're in a great place to experience a lot of things. Don't waste the money when you can put it into safety and making sure that you can enjoy it for years with your family.